Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. In today's short and simple video, we are diving into a key economic concepts, the shift of supply curve. Don't worry, it's easier than you think. So let's go. First, a quick recap. The supply curve, it shows the relationship between price and quantity that producers are willing to supply. Normally, the supply curve slope upwards because as the price increase, suppliers are willing to supply more. Now, what does it mean when we say the supply shifts? A shift means there's a change in supply at all price level, not because of a change in the price, but because of the other factors. For example, if something other than price change, like the cost of raw materials or improvement in technology, so the entire supply curve will shift. So the supply curve shift when something other than price change, and this affects how much the sellers are willing or able to supply. If supply increase, the supply curve will shift to the rightwards. If supply decrease, the supply curve shift to the left. Why? When supply increase, it means that the price of the good is unchanged, but quantity supplied increases. Refer to this graph. At P1, the original price, our quantity at Q1. But when there is no change in the price, which is it remains at P1, the quantity supplied suddenly increased to Q2. So this shifting of supply curve shows that our supply curve shift to the rightwards from S1 to S2. Meanwhile, for supply decrease, it shows that when the price is unchanged at P1, quantity supplied decreases from Q1 to Q3. The decreasing in the quantity supply will affect our supply curve, which our supply curve will shift leftwards from S1 and S3. Now, let's go one step further. What makes the supply curve move to the right or left, even when the price doesn't change? Let's break it down together. Today, we are talking about determinants of supply, or in a simple words, the factors that cause supply to change. There are several common causes that can shift the supply curve. First, price of related goods, expectation about future price, number of sellers, cost of production, level of technologies, and government policies. Just like a demand, related goods also affect supply. There are two types: complementary goods and substitute goods in productions. These are goods often produced together. Complementary goods are goods that are often produced together. For example, for Colgate-Palmolive Company, they're producing two types of goods, which is Colgate toothbrush and Colgate toothpaste. When price of toothpaste increase in the markets, so the company will increase the productions of toothpaste to get more profit. Because of this toothpaste need used together with the toothbrush, automatically the producer will increase the production of toothbrush too, which it shows that increasing in the price of toothbrush is not because of increasing in the price of toothbrush, but it is because increasing of price in the toothpaste. These situations will affect our supply curve, with the supply curve will shift rightwards. There will be opposites. When the price of toothpaste decrease, the company will decide to reduce the production of toothpaste to avoid loss. Okay. At the same time, the company also will decide to reduce the production of toothbrush, okay, due to reductions in production of toothpaste. With assumptions that the price of toothbrush is unchanged, the supply is decreased because of decreasing in the price of toothpaste. The decreasing in toothbrush will affect our toothbrush curve, which will shift leftwards. For the substitute goods, these are goods that use the same resources, but you can only produce one at a time. For example, Proton Holdings producing Proton Saga and Proton X70. So Proton need to decide. Either they want to produce Proton Saga or Proton X70. If the price of Proton Saga in the market increase, so Proton will choose to produce more Proton Saga with reduce the production of Proton X70, regardless of changes in price of X70. With no change in the price of X70, the supply of X70 decreases due to increasing in their substitute goods, which is Proton Saga. So, the supply curve for Proton X70 will shift leftwards. But, when price of Proton Saga decrease in the markets, Proton will reduce the production of Saga and remove the resources of producing this car to produce more Proton X70. It will affect our supply curve, which our supply curve for X70 will shift rightwards. This is a bigger one. Cost of productions. Okay, if it become cheaper to produce something, sellers can supply more. For example, if the price of flour drops, a bakery can make more bread at lower costs. So, supply increases. But if the cost goes up, like higher wage, electricity bills, or even raw materials, seller may reduce supply. Okay, the increasing in the price of raw materials will lead increasing in the cost of production. Therefore, sellers have to reduce the production of supply. Okay, so our supply curve will shift leftwards. But if the producer can find other alternative product, okay, which leads to decreasing in the price of raw materials or the cheaper raw materials price, okay, the producer can reduce the production cost of production. Okay, these reductions will lead to increase the production of supply, and our supply curve will shift rightwards. The other factors is number of sellers. We know that more sellers means more supply. For example, if more people start baking and selling cookies online, the total supply of cookies in the markets will increase. So, the supply will shift to the right. But if some sellers close their business or leave the markets, so the supply will decrease and the curve will shift left. The other factors is level of technology. Better technology helps producer make things faster, cheaper, and in larger quantities. For example, a company that installs automatic machines can produce more items with less time and labor. So, with improved technology or advanced technology, supply will increase and leads to rightward shift. But if the machines break down or all system or outdated technology use, supply will decrease and our supply curve will shift leftward. One more factors that same as demand, which will influence our supply, is expectation in the future price. Sometimes sellers change their supply based on what they expect to happen later. If sellers believe the price of oil, for example, will rise next month, they may hold back supply now and wait to sell later at a higher price. So, supply decrease now and curve will shift left. But if seller believe price in the future will decrease in the next month, they will tend to supply more in the current day and they will sell more at the current time. Our supply curve will shift rightwards. There are two important policies that affect supply, which is subsidies and tax. Subsidy is a financial help from the government to producer. It also can be a subsidy in terms of fertilizer. It can be a subsidy in terms of pesticides. Which is these subsidies will reduce the burden of production costs on supplier. Therefore, if government gives subsidy to a rice farmer, for example, they can produce more at a lower cost. So, with the subsidy given, supply will increase and supply curve will shift rightwards. But when government eliminate or reduce the amount of subsidy, so the burden on the sellers will be higher and it will reduce the production of supply and our supply curve will shift leftward. The second types of government policies is tax. Tax is a money that the government collects from the sellers. So tax will reduce profit, therefore increase in tax will reduce supply. If tax increase, it becomes more expensive to produce and sell goods. So supply will decrease and supply curve will shift leftwards. So with supply imposed or when government increase the tax rate, so it will affect supply directly. If government reduce tax or government eliminate tax, it will help sellers to produce more goods and services. So the supply will increase and supply curve will shift rightwards. Let's quickly go over the 6 key factors that can shift the supply curve. Price of related goods, expectation about future price, number of sellers, cost of production, level of technology, and government policies. And that's it for today's video. Now you know what causes the supply curve to shift even the price does not change. In the next video, we will bring it together and talk about market equilibrium, where demand and supply meet to set the price.